This is the Real Estate Sit Down presented by Double B Homes. My name is Blair Berg, and today I'm joined by friend, colleague, and fellow real estate agent Nick Harris, who is going to talk to us today about mental health in the career field. Thanks for coming on, Nick.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, thanks. So let's get right into your background. What did you do before real estate?
So I've always kind of been in sales in some fashion. So right out of college, I dabbled with car sales, been a car guy all my life. So I did car sales. But right after that, I actually got into property management. So I did property management from 2012 until I got my real estate license in early 2017, I believe it was. So
Okay, great. Yeah, so 2017. So did you go to school in the area? You local or?
yeah, so I grew up born and raised in Eagan, Minnesota, right here. So went to Eagan High School, and then after that, I actually started at Hamlin University.
Wildcats.
Yeah, right. And then transferred from Hamlin. I transferred over to University of St. Thomas. So I'm a Tommy. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, great. Yeah. So what got you interested in real estate?
Oh gosh. I've always kind of been interested in real estate. Ever since I was a little kid, I would love looking at buildings and houses and just kind of be in awe of all of that.
Mhm.
And so I don't know what it was. I've always been drawn to it. And then once I got kind of thrown into property management, I was kind of hooked from there. Kind of knew that I wanted to always do something that had to do with real estate.
Yep.
I didn't know if it was on the residential side, the commercial side. I did some commercial property management. But it's always just kind of been there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that's the way it starts for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then I think some people drop out because they get into it and they realize that's not really what it is anymore.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
I totally get that, but I think that's where a lot of people start.
Yep.
And it's funny too. We could talk about property management too. I used to do some part-time work in property management.
Oh, cool.
The interesting thing about property management is I feel like everyone always thinks they could do it a little better, no matter what position you're in. Like, wait, why do you do it that way?
Yeah. That was definitely me too.
Yeah.
When I got into it, I was like, oh, how hard could this be?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Which that's a conversation for another day.
Right,
so talk to me about your real estate journey. So you got your license in 17.
Yep.
What did that kind of look like? What brokerage did you join right away? I know you're with Pemberton Home Team now.
Yep.
You didn't start there though, right?
No. So I've kind of, it seems to be the tale of the industry a little bit, where I got in kind of, and you try to find the right fit and feel for you. Mm-hmm. So I actually got in with Keller Williams, started with KW. I was only in for a brief time though. It was maybe 3 months before my partner at the time was getting a little squirmish about the lack of income.
Yeah.
Because I was brand new to it.
Yeah.
And so I actually dropped out and went briefly back to property management.
Yeah.
For a short hiatus, but that craving was still there. That voice was still there. So went back. I actually went under the wing of a good friend of mine, Corey Wright, who was on the show previously.
Great guy.
And learned a ton of stuff about the industry from him, a lot about investments and all of that stuff. But I still was a little bit newer. So I needed to build that pipeline, build that business, the income, and all of that. So I actually went back with Keller Williams for a little bit, joined a team there, did pretty well, decided that I wanted to go solo. And the month after I went solo, COVID hit. And so my entire pipeline just kind of like disappeared, and everyone got locked indoors. And so I decided, maybe I should go back to a little bit of a team structure just to rebuild. So, and that kind of led me, I was with a small boutique firm for brokerage for a little bit and then joined Pemberton. So
yeah, and it's funny too, I won't dive into it too deep, but we were kind of like ships in the night too with that with your KW team, because as you were leaving, I was coming in.
Yep, exactly.
And that was right after like COVID had started.
Yeah,
so
it was brutal for some
people. That was a whole event. But yeah, no, that's good. And I think it's funny too, like you're saying, your partner got a little squeamish. I think that's pretty typical. Is like you join, you're like, so where's the money?
Exactly.
It takes a little bit to get going. And that's why I'm kind of thankful when I got in, it was just me. Like I was just a single guy at the time. So it's like, I really just need to make enough to get by.
Yep.
But it is funny too. When I first started, I looked around. I'm like the only single realtor in this building. And then when it came to find health insurance, I was like, oh, that's why.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, 1000%.
I was like, oh, because everyone else has a spouse, so they can get health insurance.
Right.
So yeah,
right.
I figured out pretty quickly why. But
Right. Exactly.
I do think that's a good transition to kind of what we're talking about today. Is kind of mental health in a commission-based world too, because that can cause a ton of stress.
Absolutely.
And I think, what is it? I think finances is like the number one like issue among couples, I think.
I believe so. Yeah.
So
I mean,
that's a great segue into what we're talking about, because it's like you need money to support your family. So
exactly. Yeah.
I guess to start it off, like, why do you think mental health might play a different role in this career or commission-based one compared to a 9 to 5? I mean, there's stressors in both, obviously.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think in today's world, 9 to 5s are kind of, the line is getting blurred too because of cell phones and emails. So.
Emails, cell phone, work from home, all that.
Yeah.
I guess honestly, I'll start with a little bit of a story of how this all kind of came about. But it was actually when I was in property management. I was the assistant manager to this massive 400 something unit community.
Yep.
So, there's a lot coming in, a lot to deal with, a lot of problems. It's Class C. So there's a lot of, stuff to deal with in general. So I remember I was at home. It was the middle of the night. I wake up and I have these like pains in my chest, and my chest feels tight. I can't breathe. I'm like, what the heck is happening?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? Like, am I having this heart? Like, my immediate reaction is like, oh no, like I'm having like a heart attack or like heart problems or something. And so the next day I kind of go in and I'm freaking out. I go into the doctor for some testing, and they put me through all these tests, wires on the chest and on a treadmill. They're running scans and doing all this stuff. And I'm freaking out like, oh geez, I got 2 young kids and all that stuff. And then the tests are done and I go in the room with the actual doctor, and she's like, there's nothing wrong with your heart. You have anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? Like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Like, no, and especially as men, it's like, there's that stigma, like, oh no, just toughen up. Like, just sweep it under the rug. And so that was kind of like my first, intro into this world of mental health and all that stuff. So, but the reason why I think it's a little different. So back then, obviously, a lot of it was onset by just the amount of work that was coming in, and it was kind of new to me at that level. And I think a lot of people experience it a little bit differently, mental health differently. So for some people, it might be depression, anxiety, overwhelm, feelings of just being extremely overwhelmed and flooded and whatnot, or a combination of all of those. For me, it's mainly the feeling of being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So in the 9 to 5, it was just like you're taskless. And then when it comes to this career, it's like nobody's holding your hand. Nobody's necessarily telling you what to do. You might have some help and some support and whatnot, but nobody's there to do it for you.
Yeah.
So it's sink or swim. It's, eat what you kill, that type of mentality. So I think it kind of comes in a little bit differently. And for someone like me who gets these feelings of, intense overwhelm, that's kind of where I struggle the most, is just personal life. I'm a single father of 2 kids. And so dealing with that, putting food on the table, paying the bills, getting everything done for work, getting all my personal stuff done.
Yep.
All of that stuff. So I think it varies, but for me, I think that's where it's a little bit different from my 9 to 5 world.
Yeah.
Where it was 9 to 5, it was like, okay, once I'm out of here, because I'm
Bye.
stressed out, bye. Like, I'm not dealing. I don't care.
Yeah.
You don't pay me enough.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm not dealing with it.
Yeah.
But it's, when you're a real estate agent or, and it's for some 9 to 5 people too, they get it home, of course. But it just almost never shuts off when you're an entrepreneur, essentially.
Yeah. And I think too, it manifests, like you said, so much differently in every single individual person. And I think people who know us are like, oh, those are 2 pretty carefree guys. Like, they probably don't have like any issues, but And it's funny too, because I kind of had a similar thing happen to me. That's why I kind of chuckled when you're telling me your story, because so I've always been like, the way I grew up, it was like, you better have like a broken arm before going to the doctor.
Yeah.
So like, I've never been
Right,
like a
yeah.
doctor guy. I've always
Yeah.
been very healthy.
Yep.
So I don't go to the doctor very often. And then this last couple years, I tore my Achilles a couple times. I've had varicose veins in my leg, and through that, I got blood clots.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
So I've been on blood thinners and stuff, but that combined with kind of the stress from work, and I'm the kind of person, I don't even know when something's stressing me out
Yeah.
until my body just has a reaction to
Yeah.
it. Like, to me, I think I'm doing a really good job of shutting it off and kind of, keeping busy, keeping myself distracted. And I think for the most part, I'm a pretty happy guy, but then it will just, like, my body will just have a reaction.
Just
So
switch off,
the
yeah.
first time it happened, and it was a lot like what you described, like, I thought I was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
Like, and then I thought it was an onset from like the blood clotting issue.
Right.
So
Oh,
then
yeah,
obviously
yeah.
I'm panicking, like, oh, a blood clot is broken off and I'm having like a heart attack,
Oh,
or
my
I'm having
God,
like
yeah.
a stroke or something. So like, I
Yeah.
started panicking, and the symptoms I was feeling were symptoms that doctors had told me, like, because of your issue, like, if you feel this way, you need to go to the ER.
Beware. Yeah. Yeah.
So I went in, same thing. They hooked me up all the tests. I even wore like what they call as a Zio pack for 2 weeks, which is like something I had to wear on my chest that would monitor my heart rate for 2 weeks to make sure like my heart was in a regular rhythm. And it was. They couldn't find anything wrong with me, and it's kind of gotten to the point where I kind of just have to like just power through it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too. So like, I am 30 years old to this point. Besides when I was like a little kid, I didn't have a primary doctor.
Yeah.
So like, that's, I don't go to the doctor.
Yeah.
So like, when I started seeing this specialist about the blood clots, he's like, okay, who's your primary? So I can send this over. I'm like, I don't have one.
I don't have one.
And then so he kind of rolled his eyes and had to recommend one for me. But
yeah.
And I met with him, and it's fine. But I kind of describe what I'm going through, and a lot of doctors just tell me like, well, I mean, obviously you've lived through them, so just kind of tell yourself you're going to get through it.
Right.
I've never been like diagnosed with something.
Yeah,
I've never been even like referred to like a therapist or anything.
Yeah.
They just kind of like, well, you're alive, aren't you? Like,
yeah.
You're all right.
It
I'm
is
like,
what it is.
but I will literally like, and they'll ask me like, does it like something happen that triggers it, like a stressor? And like, to me, I don't even think so. And like, but it'll happen randomly. Like, I'll wake up in like the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, I'll have like chest pains.
Yeah. Yep.
And I kind of just have to like be like, well,
you got to power through. You got
this better be one of my panic attacks and not something else.
And not something else. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
But to me, it was like so foreign. And obviously nowadays mental health is a really big topic. And
yeah,
I've always been like an advocate for mental health. And I just thought, I didn't know that I was even in that realm until it started happening to me.
Yeah, exactly the same. I had no clue. I knew people struggled with it, but it was never something that I myself, I've always been, kind of, happy-go-lucky, carefree, especially in my younger years, all the way through college. It's kind of like, oh, whatever, go with the flow. And then it's like, you get to your 30s or whatever, and it's like more responsibilities, things start piling on a little bit. And it just kind of can pop up out of nowhere. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think too, so, and kind of to transition to my next question is like how mental health affects you and your career. It's funny too, because obviously I've always known there's like an anti-landlord sentiment out there.
Yeah.
Like, people don't like landlords, but as a landlord myself, as someone who rented most of my life, now as a property owner and I'm landlording, I truly, and like you kind of touched on, I truly try to be the best landlord I can be, because I know what the renting experience is like.
Yep.
And I think people are like, oh, well, you just buy up all the properties, so blah, blah, blah. But truly the way I see it is I'm providing a place for someone to live that can't afford home ownership at the time.
Yeah.
And as a real estate agent too, I like that I can give them resources, and I'm fully like supportive of when it's time to buy a house. Like, let's talk about how I can financially set you on the right path to buy a house.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. I'm sure there are bad landlords out there, and I think I've had a few.
1,000%.
But I do think that, and I think it carries over from the profession that we have, is I'm always trying to get the best review that I can, because that's how you create repeat and referral clients, is giving a good experience and really caring about the people on the other side.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't want to be a bad landlord and then they're going to talk bad about you and then you're not going to have any renters.
Right.
So it's like, you're trying to keep people as long as you can, or like I said, set them up for home ownership. So
kind
of moving into that, so I've always been aware of that. But recently, and I'm not a big Reddit guy. I really don't know how Reddit works.
Yeah,
But
I don't
I
know,
remember
yeah.
I was looking something up, and I Googled something, and one of the answers I was looking for was
Was
on
on
a
Reddit.
Reddit forum. And I looked into it, and then I was like, oh, I'll look through the real estate stuff on there. People hate real estate agents. I didn't
Oh
know.
my
I didn't
gosh.
even know that.
It's yeah, people despise, and that's another part that I've struggled with it actually ties into the mental health
Yeah.
is
Well, that's why I bring it up,
is
because
seeing how much disdain there is for and I get it, like looking at how some of the practices used to be,
yeah,
and but be compared with, and it's funny because I did car sales and I've seen how that works, but to be compared to like a snaky old used lot car salesman,
yeah,
it's like that's brutal. Like we're just out here wanting to help people with a massive life decision.
yeah,
And I get it. There's some realtors out there who ruin it for a lot of us, but I mean, that's for any industry,
yeah.
right? And yeah, people really despise it. Really, I actually saw a post on Instagram, and it kind of shocked me because it was a gal who claimed to be a realtor, but she was also kind of making fun of realtors and kind of giving us a bad, painting us in a bad light.
hmm
And I made the mistake of going through the comments, and so many people just it was hateful.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, like I get it, but it's like we're here to help. Like that's, realtors like me, you, and our friends we're just here to help and help people with this decision.
Well, and I think that's a great point, because I think there is major misconceptions about what realtors do, even.
Yeah,
And I think that's a
absolutely.
big thing, because a lot of my clients are friends and family. And it's
Mhm.
like, trust me, I don't ever feel like I'm taking advantage of people. I
No,
wouldn't take advantage of my own friends and family. And
right.
you're doing things that, if this wasn't my being in the profession, knowing what I do on any given deal,
Mhm.
this is not something I would recommend anyone do on their own.
Yeah.
It's just like representing yourself in court.
Yeah.
You could look at a lawyer and be like, well, what is he doing? All he's doing is talking for you.
Right. Yeah.
Well, he knows a lot of things that you don't know
He spent the
legally.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's like, he's trained on this. It's his profession. Leave it to the professionals. And
Yep.
I don't think people realize is like, everyone's like, oh, the real estate agents and the investors are teaming up and they're taking up all the houses. That's not what's happening. Most of my clients are people that need a home to live in.
Right.
Or like, I mean, I had an older lady that I was helping, and we just finally were selling her home. And like, every time a deal would fall apart, my heart was breaking for this
Yeah.
person,
Oh,
because
yeah.
she needs to move to be closer to family. And
Yeah.
there's so many stories like that where it's like, I'm helping to unite family members in a different state or something, where it's like,
Right.
you're just trying to get that deal done. And that adds to the stress of a deal when it's like dragging on. You're like,
Exactly.
I have a family here who's trying to tend to a terminally ill family member
Yep.
that can't get there because an agent on the other side is like making it difficult, or
Yeah. Or it's all
just
about the money.
so it's like
or,
someone, like, there are people that this is their livelihood, is getting them this home.
Right.
So it's not like, yeah, we're all teaming up to
Right,
swoop
yeah.
up all the properties so that people can't afford to live anywhere.
It's we're not money hungry,
Yeah. And it's like,
Wall
we're
Street
real
types
people
or
helping
whatever.
other real people
Yeah.
find a home that they need to live in.
Exactly.
And that's usually the case.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, sure, are there investment people out there buying the properties? Yes. But most of the time, you're helping a real person make a real move that they need to make.
Right. Exactly.
And that's why it's such a tough time in the market, because, interest rates are a little higher, supply is low. But unlike a piece of art, people have to buy it. There are people that have to buy a new home.
Exactly.
It's
Yep.
not like a want, it's a need.
Right.
If you get a new job, divorce, death in the family, you
Yep.
can't afford it anymore. And
Family's
that's where a lot,
growing.
and a lot of our job is creative solutions for housing for these people.
Right.
And I think we do a ton where it's like, if we absolutely can't find you something to purchase, like, even for free, we're helping you find a place to rent.
Right.
Because like, the way we do business, we don't do rentals.
Yeah, it's not really our
So it's
thing.
like, we're helping people get into rentals. We're
Mhm.
referring them to the people that can help them. And then it's like, if we were just like doing it for the buck, we'd be like, all right, sorry.
Right.
If you don't have the money, sorry, I can't
Right.
help
Yeah.
you.
Sorry, I can't help you. And I do know agents. I've run into agents like that.
Yeah.
And it's, that is part of it. And it's, tying into the mental health aspect. It weighs on us when we're genuine agents who are genuinely trying to help our clients. We get attached to these clients, not just a transaction. I know some people operate a little differently, but for me personally, I've made friends that were referred to me as, and we sat down as strangers, and years later we're still friends.
Yep.
And even the ones that it doesn't go that way, it's still, you still build a bond when you're
Yep.
alongside someone for however many months. And so, yeah, it definitely weighs on you a little bit in your mental health when you read those comments and you hear people think that we're just door openers. And
well, and that's the
all we
thing
care
too, is
about.
there's so many people that are like, oh, the way the housing market is, the houses just sell themselves. Why we don't need real estate agents? There's so much that goes into it, like the contracts,
Yeah,
negotiating,
exactly.
making sure you're protected. Because I would never recommend an unrepresented seller to sell to an unrepresented buyer, because
yeah.
the legal ramifications of that,
It's
like
a
neither of you are
beehive.
protected,
Yeah.
and you have no idea what's going on, like how to do like the inspections, appraisals, and all the stuff that goes into lending.
Yeah.
And if you try to tackle that all on your own, like I said, I often say it's like I would never try to, rebuild the engine of my car by myself.
Right.
I would never
Hold my
try
own
to
tooth.
represent myself in court.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because it's like I just don't know.
Yeah. You just have no clue. You think you might know, or you think it's, in theory.
Yeah,
easy.
you're like, oh, this legal matter, I know what happened.
Yeah.
But you don't know the legalese that go into it and how to protect yourself.
Exactly. And I think people just kind of see, because that's the glamorous part. That's the part we see on Bravo TV of, go out, look at a house, get on your cell phone real quick on camera, and then make a deal. And, that's it.
Yeah.
But really where it happens and where we come in is prior to the showings, is educating our clients. After the showings, after they found a house, got their offer, even during that, helping them negotiate the offer so that it fits what they need and is in their benefit and their best interest. And then the after part of, walking them through the process and the legalese and all of that stuff is, I've talked with people who are like, I just want to, I'm going to do this myself, but can you answer some questions? And then by the end of that conversation, they realize they have no clue what they're doing. And they're like, forget it. Let me get some help. So,
yeah. And by no way or means is that like, we're like making it more confusing to trick you into using us. Because especially here in Minnesota, buyer's agents are free.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
if you're, that's another thing I always say. It's like, use a buyer's agent.
Yeah.
It's free to you as the buyer.
Absolutely.
So just have that guide. It's like, again, if I went to like a foreign country, I'd want like a tour guide, someone to like show me around. And I would consider, like, now knowing all the stuff in the background of real estate, it's like, I would love a guide if I wasn't in the profession myself.
Right. Absolutely.
And you didn't even really touch on the consoling we have to do when your client has lost out for the 9th time.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just so competitive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like kind of teaching them, like in the education, like, why did we lose this offer?
Mm-hmm.
What can we do next time to make it stronger?
Yeah.
Are we looking in the right price bracket?
Right.
And stuff like that. So, and again, these are friends, these are family members. Mm-hmm. And we, at the end of the day, see the heartbreak on their face when they didn't get the house again.
Right.
And then we carry that home. And it's not like, again, we're not just door openers. We're not like, oh, all right, well, whatever.
Yep.
You go home and you're like, what can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Right. Exactly.
Like, how can I make them feel good about this? How can I pull a win out of this so we can move forward and get them the home?
And I would say it's almost twofold, or maybe even threefold, because not only are we feeling bad for them, but then we're also, on the mental health piece, it's, some of us we get down on ourselves maybe a little bit, like, what could I have done better?
Mm-hmm.
And then also there's you might have feelings of anxiety of, am I going to be able to get this done? You know, are they looking at me thinking that I'm wasting their time and don't know what I'm doing? Or am I going to be able to help them before their deadline? So we're taking on a lot. Yeah. And it's, it all wraps into that big mental health snowball.
Well, exactly. Cause you can't separate all of that. No. And it's like we talked about in another episode with Ian, talk about time blocking and stuff. And I think that's a good way to try to protect your mental health.
Absolutely.
But you can't block, like, oh, I'm going to only feel this emotion during this time.
Exactly.
Like, it's going to, that's going to
that
spill
way.
Into all the time blocks.
It's going to spill into everything.
So
I experienced that too. Yeah,
exactly. Cause it's like, you're not going to and I'm getting better at it, because it's like at the end of the day, yes, you have to protect your mental health and your family's mental health. But yeah, it's just like at the end of the day, you're just like, please don't doubt that I am doing the best I can do for you.
Right. Yeah.
Just because like we've lost out. It's like, that's just kind of the market we're in.
Right.
And like you can write a really strong offer, but there are other people writing really strong offers.
Yeah,
so.
everybody is, and it's just it can be a Shark Tank. So you just have to, go to your arsenal of tools and get creative in this market for sure. But yeah, I mean, it even weighs on us. Even if your clients are thinking that, but then you also take it home, and you have to provide for your family, and so that's weighing on you too. Like, okay, do I, they're counting on me to get this done. So that weighs on you too. But
yeah, so any like good tips, stuff you do to protect your own mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, once I kind of, and like you said, I wasn't really, I don't think you could call it a formal, it wasn't like a formal thing where the doctor said medically you 1000% struggle with anxiety.
Yeah.
There was no talk about therapy or anything like that, or it was just like, you just have anxiety and you probably should relax a little bit. And it was like, okay, thanks, doc. Yeah.
Can you put that on a prescription pad?
Yeah, exactly. And so, I kind of jumped into it once I accepted that and realized what was going on. I started to dive into it a bit more, read books, articles, podcasts, things like that. And really, there's two parts to it that I do. So there's like the mental aspect for helping myself, and then there's like the productivity aspect. So the first thing in mental is really just accepting it and giving myself grace and just understanding, being very self-aware and saying, if I'm having a terrible day or a terrible morning, it might be time to just call it and being okay with that.
Yep.
And just saying, you know what? I need to just take a step back because I'm not going to be able to serve anyone. I'm not my best self right now.
Yeah.
I need to take a step back. I'm going to take the day off or take the hour off or 20 minutes even, and just do something for me to unwind, regather, and then come back either 20 minutes, an hour, the next day, whatever. So there's that part, and just really being aware of what do I need, putting myself first.
Yep.
Because it's so cliche, but it's true. You can't pour into anything if your own, cup is empty.
Yeah.
If you have nothing to give, you can't give.
Yeah, exactly.
And so just really being aware of, if I need a day or need half a day or something like that. On top of that, I think finding something and scheduling that, like you mentioned, time blocking, that goes hand in hand with it. Is one thing I learned is put your stuff in first,
Yep.
So I like to schedule out a week or so, and I'm not the best at it. I'm not a guru. I still struggle with it here and there, but at least saying, okay, you know what, I need an afternoon or a morning or something, and scheduling that. And then what do I like to do? What calms me and lets me just step away and disconnect a little bit so I can recharge, and then just do that, and sometimes I'm not the best at it. Sometimes we do get caught up because our profession is so go that we can get lost in that, and we can get excited about it too. So it's not always just dull or whatever. We can get excited and just want to keep going, but we also have to realize that we need to step back.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's the whole like mental side, is just being aware, making sure I take that time. For the productivity, I find that because my main thing that I struggle with is getting so overwhelmed that if I have, in our profession, we've got the deals, we've got talking to new clients, we've got, how do we grow our business, our marketing, finances, taxes that we just had to do.
Yeah, right.
All of this stuff is
I filed an extension.
Yeah, exactly. All of this stuff is in our head, and it's just like we're constantly thinking. And then for me, if I'm doing something and something triggers a thought, I might be like, oh, I gotta do that too.
Yeah.
And jumping around and whatnot, and then getting so overwhelmed with your task list that nothing gets done at all.
Yep.
And then you feel like crap. So nothing gets done. Then you kind of beat yourself up about it. And then the cycle kind of continues. So one of the things that I make sure that I do right now is I have a huge to-do list, of course, like everyone else in the industry. But what I make sure to do is just take 3 main things the 3 things that I want to accomplish for that day. Those are nothing else really matters, just those 3 things. I make sure they're obviously meaningful.
Prioritized.
Yeah,
Yeah.
prioritized and going to move my business forward. And of course, there will be other things that pop up during the day with transactions and
Yeah.
whatnot. But those 3 things are my main focus. And I found that if I just sit down, take time to focus on those 3 things one at a time, then I can kind of alleviate some of that anxiety or overwhelm or feelings of overwhelm, and actually get things done.
Mhm.
And then it really alleviates a lot of that stress, and doesn't take as much of a toll on the mental health side of things. So there's that. I use a planner. It's called the Reels, like the Agent Planner Pro or
Okay. Yeah.
something, from a company. I forget the company name, but it's a pretty good one. People can Google that. But that keeps me keeps me on track. Make sure I don't forget what I need to do for the day, schedules and all of that. And just really making sure that I take it one thing at a time, one step at a time. And I'd say the other thing that I learned too, I forget the gentleman's name, but he came in, spoke to us when I was on a different team, different brokerage. And he said this thing that stuck with me, and it's still with me today, is, solve all of your problems once, just
Yeah.
once only. And, what do you mean by that? And he said, when something pops into your email and it kind of gives you that, like, oh, that anxiety gets built up, or it's an issue that you kind of don't want to deal with. You want to kick the can down the road. Every time you put that off and then you see it again and again and again, every single time, it's just triggering your anxiety,
Yeah.
and digging you into this mental health hole. Just solve it once. Just when you get it, set aside some time. It might not be right away, but just solve it and then move on. It's just like that book, Eat That Frog,
Yeah.
where you just, do all your hard stuff first. Just do it right away. Get it done with. Get it
And
out
I
of the
think
way.
we're all guilty of that at some point.
Exactly. Yep. So there's just a lot of things that you can do and it's different for everyone. There's
Yep.
different tips, tricks. It really, like I said, comes down to knowing yourself, and giving yourself grace. Just give yourself that space, that patience, that grace to say, okay, here's what I'm dealing with. Here's what I need. Don't compare yourself to the agent, that, you're seeing on social media or whatever, who's, you're trying to keep up, or everyone's life is different. Everyone
Yeah.
experiences things different, works differently. Just do your own thing. Realize what works for you and go in your own pace, and, make sure that you're doing it in a way that's going to alleviate that stress so you can actually be your best self, as cliche as it sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to wrap it up a little bit too, I think in this age of social media, it is hard to
Yeah.
not compare yourself to other agents, but you
Yeah.
just have to keep in mind they're showing you the highlight reel.
Exactly.
They're showing you the highlight reel. The worst agent can make it look like they're killing it on social media.
Absolutely.
So the only time I really think you should be comparing yourself to other agents is if it's from a learning perspective.
Yeah.
If another agent's doing something that you think would be useful for your business, then go ahead, compare. But I do think that everyone has different lead generation strategies. Everyone has different niches. Everyone has different markets. So just focus on what you can do and do it the best that you can. And then try to block out that noise. It's hard with social media, obviously, and we all have to go out there and we have to put our highlight reel out there too.
Do it, yeah.
But again, there is so much to learn from other agents, but keep it to a learning perspective.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say it's comparing, but it's learning. Shout out to Ricky Caruth, where it's like I watch him, and I don't beat myself up about all of the business he's doing. I'm like, what he's doing works for me, and so let me take that and implement it, for myself. And I'm not going to compare myself. And, my fiance, she gets on me all the time if I'm, comparing, or like, I feel like I should be doing this, or should be. Just, you have to shed all of that and let it go, and try to just kind of keep it focused, and make sure that you're not trying to, don't compare your chapter 1 or 2 to someone's chapter 10 or something like that. It's cliche quotes, but it's true. It's true.
Well, and kind of circle back to what we talked about earlier. Us being the best agent that we can be is good for the industry. There are tons of houses out there. We can all succeed. And I think a rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah.
So as long as, all of our agents are, acting ethically and with integrity, it's good for the industry.
Yeah.
And there are houses for all of us to sell, buy and sell. So I think that's great. And I do think that's a good thing to keep in mind. Don't be jealous of someone else's success or spiteful at that.
Yep.
Let them have their success. There's definitely a lane for you to have your success as well.
Absolutely. The comparison and all of that, it's just going to snowball.
Well, and everyone, and they're like, well, you know, the real estate industry is so saturated, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, McDonald's existing didn't stop Burger King from opening a restaurant.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's room for everybody.
There's room for everybody. Yep, exactly.
All right. So this has been great, Nick. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
I think there's a lot of tidbits in there for everybody.
Yeah.
No matter what industry you're in. So this has been good.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Nick.
Some people. Thanks. Yep. Appreciate it.